So when we're looking for attorneys, our first thing when we enter into anything with high conflict custody needs to be, do I need an attorney or not? And then if I do need one, how is it that I find one? How is it that I interview an attorney? What do I look for? What are red flags with attorneys? What kind of questions do I need to be able to ask? How do I switch attorneys if I need to switch an attorney? And then if we're going pro se, if we go, man, you know what? I can't hire an attorney because this is like a huge thing that we have. You know, I can't afford an attorney who can do that. I got ripped off already by 2 or 3 attorneys. What is it that I need to know and what can I prepare myself for going pro se? Now, all of these things are so difficult to explain. Like, I wish I could break it down to you and go like, oh man, you know, you just do this, you read this book, and then you plug it into your brain and you do all the things that you did really well in your life, and it's just like that, and you'll be good to go. It's not. So all of this is you're literally learning a new language. There's tons of unfairness. You know, you're going to really understand that things are unfair. It's going to make you want to quit. You're going to see all sorts of bias. And within all of that, you need to learn to argue different statutes or laws. And then you're going to think you know them. They're going to get countered, and you need to learn how to counter that. And it's like this whole web of different things. And it's overwhelming. The overwhelmingness alone will make you want to quit. But you're also going to have walls, you're going to have biases, and it just feels like you're fighting an impossible battle. Now, everybody talks about this. But what is my message and what is my channel about and what is my group about and what has my group done is that you don't have to lose. You definitely can. It's real easy to. Like, there's so many ways to give up and screw up. But you don't have to. And if you want, and like when I say you want to work at it, you really need to understand that in finding a family law attorney or discovering whether or not you can go pro se and all that different sort of stuff, like, it is something that is a huge commitment that you need to make. So every dad tells me, he says, you know, man, I'm willing to do anything. Well, if you are, that anything isn't just anything you've done before. It's going to be a whole lot of things that you've never done before and have a whole lot of resistance in them. Now, my whole thing is I want to help you through it. And I'm just going to tell you this right now, man. I produce these videos like a bunch of people. I've always sold my services, and man, I love selling. I do it. That's how I've stayed in business for 20 years. Is one person helping men in a whole thing of the whole world that ignores them in so many ways. But the goal of a lot of what I've been doing the last couple months is, man, we've done it successfully enough to show you how to win. I want to make as much information available as possible for free. And if you're going to hire me, it's for the service. That's it. And so I want to go over that in this. Now, for the guys who are watching on the Zoom presentation, we're going to go over chapter 5 in Josh's book, where he talks about initial questions. And these are the questions that you ask your attorney when you're interviewing them. This is some of the most important stuff. And you'll hear me over and over again hammer that you need to know your case. You need to know the laws. You need to know the statutes. Because if you don't know those things, you're going to ask the wrong questions. And you're going to then have somebody in the system sell to you, right? And you want to say, hey, system, I need your help. I don't really want to ask you for your help, but I need your help to be able to see if you can represent my case. And if I'm going to represent myself, I need to know what questions to ask you, because if you are representing yourself, you should interview attorneys to see, you know, what your judge is like and different strategies and so on. You should hire them for consultations on all those different things. So there's some basic questions that you need to ask a family law attorney. Number one is, do you specialize in family law? If so, how long have you been working in family law? What kind of cases do you do? Have you represented cases like mine? If so, can you give me examples? Have you done this in front of your judge? Now, I know you're watching this and you might be going like, is this guy entertaining enough to actually take notes? But this you really need to take notes for, because you could forget this. So, do you specialize in family law? How long have you been practicing? What kind of cases are you good at? Have you had a case like mine? Here's all the information of all the due diligence that I should have done on my case. And of course, some of it's going to slip in there. Your anger, your pissed offness towards her. You're like, man, she lied about this and that or whatever. But you do need to be able to articulate well. The better you can articulate to that attorney you're interviewing, the better that attorney can give you feedback on what you need to know. But that's just the start. That's just the beginning of the basic things that you need to ask them. You should also ask them for references. So there's a couple different ways to like understand what attorneys to even start with. Okay, so a reference is important, but that reference should be current. So for instance, in Austin, Texas, there's a famous, amazing female attorney that represented some famous people. And for the past 15 years, she's underserved everybody because she has a reputation. Her notorious thing, and we've seen it with guys in our group actually, this was 6 or 7 years ago, is horrible. Horrible. She basically says, man, here's who I've represented. And it's like, holy shit, you represented all those people? And then the reputation is basically that she takes you all the way up until the end and then forces you in a position to settle. And at that point, my client, who was warned by multiple attorneys that I referenced them to, that she would do this, she did exactly that, and he had to represent himself. And it was crazy. He actually had a heart attack. It's a crazy story. So we want references to be current. Another thing to look for is that they have references from other attorneys. So actually the way I found my attorney, who just dominated my case. I mean, like, it's amazing. I don't know if you've watched any of my stuff, and you don't need to, but he did. If you don't know this, I have a criminal charge. I have a criminal record for child abuse that was false, but was forced into a plea, didn't do the right things with all sorts of protective order things. It went criminal. It's a horrible experience, right? Parental alienation, the whole 9 yards, right? And he took my case and he basically said, like, Steve, it doesn't matter what you did or didn't do in the past. I can win this for you. And I was scared out of my mind. The way I found him, a business attorney referenced him to me. And so other attorney references are super, super important when it comes down to being able to get a good list of attorneys. Like, they work in circles, all that sort of stuff, right? If you know people who have worked in family law, it's a great place to start. Yelp reviews, Google, not the way to go. Like, you can look at them, but I actually know excellent attorneys. Like, there's an attorney that is represented over 20 men in my group that lives in DFW. He also represented me many years ago. That's how I found out about him. And he was also referenced from another attorney. That's how I found him. But I've now referenced him to over 20 men in our group. He wins all the time. He's excellent in trial. He's good at some stuff, not good at everything. That's one thing to understand. And he will have bad Yelp reviews. You know why? Because the other party will write them after he kicks their ass. Or somebody might have a bad experience with him. That's not a good caliber. The better caliber is going to be from people who've experienced and worked with that attorney and other attorneys. And then the other best thing you can do to get your list of attorneys is to go in and watch family court. If you can watch family court, and I know you might not be able to, you might not have time to, which I'm going to call you out a little bit on that. If you don't have time to save yourself from parental alienation for years, or maybe at a low point, $10,000. If you don't have time to take a day off that will save you, I'd say minimum 10 grand in attorney fees, you should really, man, you're making a lot of money. What can I say? Like, if your time is worth that much, if you can't take 5 hours out of your day to save 10 grand, and what dads will tell you who run into major problems in family court, it can save you a lot more than that. But that would be another great way to find good attorneys. You watch them in front of a judge, you watch them in real time, and here's the best part about it. More than likely, like if you live in Dallas County, if you live in Harris County, if you live in Washington State, many places in California, it's different from county to county. A lot of your your family law proceedings are going to be on Zoom. And you can attend those. You might need to fill out a little form. It could get a little problematic, but it's there, right? So that would be another good way to find them. So when you find these guys, you should then ask them for references, okay? So ask them for references of people that have been their clients, okay? And so a good family law attorney who's, I would recommend, has been practicing for 5 to 15 years. You know, some people argue beyond that. I currently use an attorney now that is only been, 5, maybe 6 years or something like that. But I started using him when he was 4 years in. Excellent, great, amazing. But he's also part of a firm where I know the other attorneys there, and that kind of helps. They should be able to give you references. My attorney could use me as a reference. It's no problem. I give full permission for that. You need to also ask family law attorneys when you're interviewing them, realistically, how busy are they, okay? And this is really, really important. If you cannot understand how busy they are, or if they're too busy, they're gonna be too busy for you, all right? This is very difficult. Like, the attorney hustle is this insane, psychotic thing that we can't understand. I still don't fully understand it, but they're always pushing themselves to the max. And if that gets in the way of you being able to communicate with them, of you being able to prepare for something, of you getting help with anything, that's a huge deal. Now, one of the things in our group that I want to start moving more towards is trial prep, testimony preparation and these types of things, because most attorneys underserve that. And they have a lot of information on it. It's just they don't have the 3 hours necessary to be helping you on those different things. So what I want you guys to be able to look at is, how can you really realistically assess how busy they are and how busy they get? Now, I want to go to this part here, because those are like the basic questions in looking for a family law attorney, and also some good tips on how to find a good one, even though it was a little bit out of order. But hey, man, ADHD, live presentations, off script, that's what you got to expect, okay? So the best part about Josh's book is this part I'm looking at now, which maybe you on the live streams cannot see. But it is, I think, 140 plus questions of what to ask a family law attorney in your interview. And it's broken down into different things like financial questions, or if you have false accusations, or if there's child support and alimony questions. All these different things he went through to organize for you to ask your attorney. And what's even better is if you're working with a group like ours, we can then whittle that down more. This is like the best stuff. All the dudes who are probably watching on the Zoom call are screenshotting it. I'll zoom it for you, but zoom in a little bit more. Don't tell Josh. Buy his book. It's more than worth it. So I'm going to go through these kind of quickly, but in the general section, there's the most amount of questions. And these are things that you should really be thinking about. Like, what are your responsibilities representing me? What does that mean to you? Okay. Is this a no-fault state? So some basic legal questions of what's going on. You should have probably figured that one out in your due diligence. You should look these things up before any attorney interview. You need to know your case better than your attorney at all times. Your attorney is helping you. They may be leading it and you're not, but in the background, you're leading them. They are working for you. It's really tricky, and like, how to communicate with your attorney is an art, because they have huge egos, they need them, but in some aspects, you're the boss, and other aspects, they're the boss. And you need to be able to figure that out. And anyway, so is this no fault state? What is the general process for divorce? Do you have a reliable professional relationship with other local attorneys, like opposing counsel? You want that. Like, so many guys here talk about, like, man, I hate this about the misinformation of what is going out on TikTok. I love the fact that there's a medium exposing things and how effed up the family court system is, but we also need to find solutions. So one of those things is it's all like a cartel. All the attorneys and judges know each other. That's true. That really sucks. That's not good. But you're in that game, and so you need to understand it. It's better that they have a good working relationship with the judge, with other attorneys. And the reason for that is because if there does need to be some play, right? If it's better for that attorney to maintain a relationship with the other attorney or the judge, they're going to work with you on your case. Your attorney has more leverage if that is happening, right? So for instance, if I have a case that would waste the court's time, this has happened, right? This happened in our groups, this happened to me, this is really common, that a motion has been filed against me for something, like let's say it has to do with child support, let's say it has to do with visitation, and it's going to the court, and my attorneys have a good relationship with the opposing counsel's attorney, as well as the judge. They could say, hey, look, man, you know this is a waste of time. You know what's going to happen. We're going to go in there. What can I do to help get this out of the courts? Now, if you're on the other side of that and you filed a motion and it doesn't get heard because of that, then that's going to piss you off. But what you need to realize from that end is, how do I do this in the right way? How do I get my case heard? There's so much due diligence that is necessary for you in this that is massive, but you want your attorney to have a good working relationship. Like if you have an attorney, you want them to be able to talk to the judge and the judge respect them. You want them to be able to talk to opposing counsel and respect them. And I remember in my last case, my attorney said, he said, Steve, man, this guy was so good. He told me some things which I didn't believe. First off, he psychologically profiled my ex, not officially, and he was right. And I couldn't believe it. And then he said, and because of that, she's going to hire this type of attorney. He got that attorney down to how tall they were and like everything. But what was most important about that is he knew they'd be a bad attorney. And then he told me why. And he said, because I don't want to get too into it because it sounds bad towards some people, but he basically predicted that she would get an attorney that was not a family law attorney. And I said, oh man, that's great. And he says, no, that's bad. Because they're going to screw up, they're going to make mistakes, they're going to not know how to settle, they're not going to be used to talking to clients about settling, and the judge, if we go to court, might have pity on them for not knowing. And they might also get really mad at them for disrespecting the court. But all of those things cost money and time, and so you don't want that. So you want a good relationship. It's better than not, okay? There's a lot of questions there, and that one alone, there's 22. We're going to skip it. With finances, I'm going to skip that one right now. Child support and alimony, we're going to go to that. These are some questions, and there's 14 questions here, and I'm just going to do a couple of them. But what do you need to ask an attorney about child support and alimony? Okay, what factors are considered in determining child support? Oftentimes it's math. Okay, you can still get screwed on it, but you need to know how it's measured. You should also ask a question that's not in here. Is, can we settle on child support and alimony outside of court, and would a judge agree to it? Okay, most attorneys will tell you that's not possible. That's oftentimes possible. Okay, and if you can do that, that would, that might be advantageous to both of you, right? Perhaps there could be some sort of settlement. This brings me into another thing which comes up all the time in our groups, so I'm going a little bit off script of the questions here, is that oftentimes a man, like what does a man say when he goes through a divorce and custody battle? He says, I'll do anything for my kids, okay, except like learn the impossible court system, which I get, I understand, but that should be a part of that anything. He's gonna say, I can leave with the shirt off my back, man. I don't need anything, I can rebuild myself, okay? Don't do that. I know you might feel that. Don't do that. He also says, she's the mother of my kids and I'm gonna take the high road, okay? But if you're being attacked in certain ways, taking the high road actually hurts everybody, so we can't do that. We have to be wise with it. It's not just like we are mean and cruel. It's saying that if you are gonna do the right virtuous thing, you have to be able to fight ethically, but fight in a way that's effective, okay? Now the other thing he's gonna say, I'm gonna settle and give her a generous offer. Now, one of the guys in my group, I forget what he offered his ex, but he offered her, it was something like, I'll make it up, but it was more than this, $2 million and $17,000 a month. And he had some money apparently, okay? She denied it, right? And you would say, man, you're insane. And what she ended up with was far less. And I think she ended up with something like $2,000 a month of child support. She should have taken the deal. But the reason why you don't want to give a big deal up front is because in the beginning, everybody's ready to fight, okay? So if you're looking for some sort of settlement, you want people everybody, both parties, to be like, you know what, fuck the system, this is exhausted, this is crazy, I don't want to do it. Then we go with the settlement. And here's the reason why. If we go like, I'll give you $2,000 and $17,000 a month, they might say, well, hey, let's get a little bit more, because everybody wants to fight. And then you start bargaining from there, and it just wastes time, whether they can get that or not, right? And where he had to do, it's actually horrible, his case. He had to walk backwards so much, and there were so many different problems. It's not like getting to that 2,000 was a good, easy thing where it was just a slam dunk. There's a lot of horrible sacrifice with him and his kids on that. So you need to understand that. Okay, another question here. How much will either party have to pay in child support, or can you give me an estimate? What factors in this state can reduce child support? This is important. This is why you really need a family law attorney. And if you're interviewing family law attorneys, they know this. They don't just say, it's all math, man. Okay, that's the baseline. It is. And there's like a little state calculator you can use and all these different things. But you need to go, okay, well, what about this? What about disabilities? If she has a disability, what about her work status? What about if there's mental illness involved? What if there's mental illness with me? Whatever it is, how does that play a factor in child support? Most people don't know this. Like in Texas, it's pretty crazy. Like alimony, child support definitely, and there's a mathematical equation to that, but there are factors within that. However, what's also nuts about child support and alimony is that in alimony in Texas, it's really hard to get. Now, if there's disabilities, yes, there's different ways of proving that, and there's different ways of arguing that. Your attorney needs to know these different things, okay? So that's important. We also need to take into consideration in most states, like I see so many guys make videos on TikTok how they went to the unfair family court system, which I agree with you, man, it sucks. But you went in not even arguing anything that could be argued there. And they say, I went in to go get more visitation time, and the judge granted it to me, and they didn't change my child support, and this is part of the criminal thing. Well, in your state and county, they don't go together, right? And if they do go together, why didn't you look at the argument properly? Like again, if you're willing to do anything for your kids, there's an argument there. And for every judge, and this is again something really that you should keep in mind if you watch family court. Like most people don't, right? If you watch family court and your judge is biased and hates you because you're a man or hates you because you're a woman, I can guarantee you that if you watch family court, and we'll go a little bit extra on this one, right? But if you watch 30 different cases in family court, which you could do in a 5-day period, you will see that judge who's biased rule in the favor of what you think they're biased about. You're going to see an example of that. Now, it may not be fun. It might not be a good thing. It may not be something that like you're willing to do, but it's possible. It's definitely a possible thing that can happen. And then you should go, well, if it was possible for them, what can I do for that? Now, the horrible thing about family court is that family court draws things out forever. And that's horrible, right? There might be 3 months in between a trial, or I'm sorry, between a hearing. So that means you have 3 months to go and observe your judge. And if you can't, you go, man, I'm trying to do what you say, but I can't watch my judge. Okay, that sucks. It's always best to watch your judge. But go watch a California court session and watch those judges. You're going to find judges that are similar. And it's better than sitting around watching social media about how the courts suck. You're going to get much more out of it interviewing attorneys about your judge, right? Even if that costs you a couple $100, that'd be really good. You go in with what happened, you work it over with some skilled friends on what went wrong, what could be improved, how it was unfair, and then you hire an attorney for $200. You say, man, Judge XYZ is my judge. You have experience in front of them. Okay, I'm going to do my due diligence, interview that attorney before giving them money for a consultation. And do you have experience with Judge XYZ? Here's what I ran into. What could I do? And man, you're going to get some better information from that, okay? So I get it, it sucks. We all started in the suck category in family court, but there's ways to get out of it. And it's just, they're not that fun, okay? But you can do them. All right. Will either party have to pay alimony? If so, how long will alimony or maintenance be? Like in Texas, usually 4 years if you get it. That's good to know. Really good to know. All right. There's an interview with my attorney who passed away. And what does he say? He says, if you're in California or New York and you're about to get a divorce, I would get residency in Texas and file in Texas. And I literally had a client do that, which is crazy. So this guy moved to Texas, filed for divorce, hired my lawyer, won his case, and it was, it's a better thing. For alimony, it's really, really important, right? It determines a lot. So there are some things that are bound by the state, and you're gonna be much better off in other states. I'll go over a few more questions here on child support, but again, this is from Josh Davis's book. He's the legal assistant in my group. He's amazing. Question 11, when can either party stop paying child support? Is this a factor, right? You need to know that. When can either party stop paying alimony? Will I have to pay for my kids' college? This is a big one, man. Oftentimes child support can be extended. You should really research this because if you get child support unfairly set, or alimony, it is the biggest crippler, right? So if you can minimize that in any way, that's one of the biggest wins. It's just right now in a custody battle, your biggest win is visitation. Maybe it might be dismissing a protective order, these types of things, right? But your biggest win in custody for the long term is going to be your child support being set properly. If it's set improperly, man, it adds up so much. So you need to know that if your child goes to college, does it get extended till he's 23? If your child has a disability, right? So this is also a big one state to state. If your child has a disability and you're in New York, this could go till they're 28. Now, in all this with child support and alimony, this is a interesting subject because the loudest people talking about it are the dads that are saying it's unfair and unjust, which is, there's a whole bunch of truth to that, right? And then there's a bunch of moms saying you guys are complaining about paying child support, okay? Here's what I'm talking about. And this comes from the real life experience of guys in my group. Every single dad that is behind on child support, which is a lot of dads, it's not because there's a lack of caring for their kids, a lack of support. It's because it was set too high. They didn't know how to argue it in court. It's too hard to change. Their state policies are all screwed up. And so we're trying to protect ourselves from that. And it is this, just because deadbeat dads exist, that doesn't mean that every dad, there are many dads who are behind on child support who are not bad men or bad fathers by any definition at all. And even though they're screwed by it, they feel bad about it. They feel guilty for it. They might be mad at the system about it, but they want to contribute, but they're put in an impossible cycle of it. So there's a lot of unfairness that can come from child support that we need to understand. We need to be real with that. For instance, on the flip side of this, right? Women who have been harmed in horrible ways, let's say if a woman is walking down the street and there's a lot of aggressive men who want to rob her, and then one ends up robbing her, and then they're done, and then another one ends up robbing her. These are all horrible. This is so bad, right? Nobody's saying that that's a good thing. But then the first wave of her speaking out of this, this is happening. Multiple women get robbed multiple times while walking down this street, right? And the general public had a side of men saying, we don't know the whole story. Let's get the whole story first before we even consider you of being in any pain towards the real pain you've been in. The real pain, that's horrible, right? And men did do that a long time ago, and that's a bad thing. That's not good, right? And then let's say there were women going, well, you know, I've walked down that street, and one, they could be exaggerating it. And then there's this other side of women who would say, you know what? Like, we need to freaking throw bricks through all the windows of the buildings and go hysterical, and it's screwed up. And if we can't have rights, nobody's going to have rights, right? And all these things have kind of been done as examples in our culture in that situation with women. But that's what we're doing with men. All I care about here is the solution. There are men who are running into real problems with child support, and they're not bad men, and they can't get out of it. Yeah, there's bad men. Yeah, the system is fucked. Yeah, the system needs some serious reform. But right now, if your child support gets set poorly, your life is going to be affected in very, very harmful ways. So we need to figure out ways to solve it. This is really, really important. We need to solve the problem right now. Okay, let's go into, there's can I not pay child support? And you know, there's some ways. Somebody made a comment on my TikTok today about giving up parental rights, and this was this thing. And you know, it makes sense, right? And if you do that and it works out for you, that's great. But we want to look at some ways where it can work for the average man. And if that works for you, follow my TikTok and find that guy's comment. It's on the video, I think today or yesterday. And message that person and ask him all about it. Okay, let's go into false allegations of abuse. And this is one of the most important things. If you have false allegations of abuse and you're looking for a family law attorney, you cannot just find a family law attorney. You cannot just find a good family law attorney. You need to find a family law attorney who has the ability to argue that. Now, whatever route they go, right? If that starts out with dismissing a protective order or getting things kicked out of the criminal court, that's really important for them to have experience in. If you don't start there, you could easily fail. Tons of stories about this. Lots of horrible strategies that attorneys that aren't used to this, that have heard about it, but never really argued about it, don't know how that judge sees it. This gets screwed up all the time, right? So you need to start looking for attorneys that can realistically argue false allegations and are experienced with it. And better if they're allegations that have to do with, you know, what is being alleged of you, whether that's sexual abuse, physical abuse, domestic violence, whatever it is. And in this, I just want you to know, men that are going through this, when this happens to you, you know, this happened to me, I went to jail for it. It's horrible. When you go to jail for that, you're put in solitary, or at least I was. It's not a fun experience when you get let out, like you're in as a child abuser and everybody knows it. Those people do not have good times in jail or prison. In fact, some of the worst times. So that's horrible to be falsely accused of that, okay? So if you're in this situation, you're probably ashamed to talk about it. It's emotionally charged. It's a horrible experience. But you need to understand that if you get into a men's group that's used to talking about it, you can talk about it. You should, right? It's a huge relief. When shopping for attorneys, you need to be able to talk about it. You need to be able to be real blunt about these things. If an attorney questions you on it, I would not use them, okay? So, and here's why. Like, everybody's already questioning you on it. Psychologically, it's just a nightmare. You know, one of the things for guys in our group, like, we all know who've had these false accusations placed on us, like, it's like, hey man, did you really tell me? I get it that your friends who are saying that are meaning to be your friends, but that crushes a dad's soul. I understand that firsthand. It's horrible. I don't bring that up to people. When people hear, like I have a bunch of social worker friends, which perhaps is for another video, where I ask about interviews and psych evals and how they go over it, because sometimes they do that for court. Not always the best They're oftentimes, I would argue their points or their experience. But when I tell people that if a dad tells me he's being falsely accused, I don't try and hold the space for him so that he can admit this hard thing that he's trying to get out, which everybody expects of him. And then people say, so you what if there's a man who really abused people? Look, I'm not telling people ever to abuse another person. I just know how very, very real and how many guys in my group have proven, not just in civil court, not just in family court, but proven in criminal court, that they did not abuse somebody, that it's really common. It's really common. And what we as a society should be saying in that to, like my friends who work in CPS or whatever, we should be asking, why do we not punish people making false allegations? People are taking away manpower. People are making your job harder to investigate real abuse that needs real consequences because somebody hasn't taken their medication, they haven't worked through themselves therapeutically, or whatever. They're abusing the system and potentially ruining a man's life or a woman's life, whoever the false accusations are about, and then destroying, and that we have the data on, destroying kids' lives. Like, why aren't we doing anything about that, right? Why, like, that is the thing that nobody's even done studies to look, like social workers, psychologists, the people that contribute to the DSM-5 or when the DSM-6 comes out. People are not contributing to all this data of women who, maybe it wasn't proven that she lied, but men were proven innocent. And now we have all this data of cases of that. Nobody's going back and looking at the psych evals that already exist in those cases. Like, we should be taking that and looking and going like, man, here's a checklist of what an innocent man looks like that was falsely accused. Here's a checklist of the woman who filed the claims and gave sworn witness testimony on it, right? Here's what the kids act like. Dude, this is not happening, which is actually terrifying when you think about that in the justice system. Injustice is paid for, allowed, funded, celebrated. False abusers are rewarded. It's a crazy, crazy thing. Okay, so let's get back to this false abuse allegation questions you should ask your attorney, because that's the important thing. How do we refute false allegations? You need to write that down. If you're shopping for attorneys in this, if you're even going pro se and interviewing attorneys about what the process is and how you're going to argue it in court, what is the process? How does this happen? What do I need to be an expert in? What kind of evidence do you need? All these things you should be asking your attorneys you're shopping for or attorneys you're interviewing if you're setting up your pro se case. What is the process in that? Because I can guarantee you it is really complicated. There's a whole bunch of ways to counter it. There's a whole bunch of ways to delay it. You need to be prepared for it and be able to argue on the fly with it. It sucks, okay? What if the false allegation or the false abuse claims were unfounded or not true? What ramifications will the other parent have? The short answer to that is probably none. But if you can smartly design your case, if you know you're walking into this and you're not totally out of your mind, like it's really hard if you're being falsely accused of any form of abuse. It's very hard to focus, right? Seriously, check out the different groups I have and all that sort of stuff. And if you're watching this live, you can get the free high conflict custody portal. It's like the best thing ever, man. It's the best free product that's better than paid products on this. It's just great. And you get the dad-to-dad emails. It's the bee's knees, man. But the ramifications for somebody making false allegations, what are those if they're unfounded? Well, first, let me explain a couple things. False abuse accusations infect the courts. Number one, you have family court to deal with. Family court has massive discretion. It does not need any proof, any disproof, whatever. It can assume a lot, and the judges can make some pretty harsh rulings out of safety, okay? This is a horrible part of the system, Okay, so if CPS, DCFS, whoever is investigating this, and they say it's unfounded, which is really good news for you, right? You still need to know that that judge can say, you know what? I'm not sure about this, and I'm concerned. This is horrible. It's unfair. We can talk about how fucked up it is and make a bunch of comments about it and reply videos to it. But if this is happening to you, you need to be aware of this because you need to be able to counter it on the fly in the courtroom, especially if you're pro se. And your attorney better be experienced in this because most attorneys don't understand this. So they go to the court and they go, man, we got this great CPS thing. It says it's unfounded. Slam dunk. There are so many ways opposing counsel can say they're still afraid. There's other concerns. There's another therapist. They could say that they have certain witnesses that they needed more time to prepare that can continue the case longer. And while that happens, your protective order, your supervised visitation, your whatever it is going to get continued for that time. So you need to understand that, okay? So family court is one of the worst places for false allegations. And even if it is unfounded by whoever's investigating it. Now there's also criminal court, okay? So oftentimes it gets picked up by criminal court and family court. And CPS is going to be in both, all right? And things can be proven or unfounded, actually not proven. So in criminal court, it has to be proven that you did something. And even then, man, when you get into criminal court, it gets really nasty because if the DA picks it up, right? If the prosecutors pick it up, they have to meet a quota. They can't make mistakes. It makes the police force look bad. It makes their whole system look bad. They have more accountability. So there's just more, I would call it dirty work. There's evidence that gets blocked. There's stuff that gets cut out. Different witness testimonies get blocked. Other ones get highlighted. To construct a criminal case, because it does need proof, it can be really unfair in some different ways, but it still needs proof, okay? In family court, stuff gets kicked out of criminal court all the time, right? We see it a lot. It gets kicked out of criminal court. They drop the case, not enough evidence, but family court goes, well, okay, let's look at this. And you know what? I'm the judge, and I have a huge amount of power, and I don't want to look at all the evidence from criminal court because the family law attorney who's representing the person making false allegations is bringing up different counters to it and whatever, and they may know the game better than your attorney. Your attorney needs to know the process. You need to learn everything about the process, about false allegation cases, and here is the bad part about that. You know how I say you should go in and watch family court? Oftentimes, when there's abuse towards minors, you can't watch those cases. And so in that situation, you really, really cannot get enough access to your case. So you've got to interview lawyers, and you've got to man, it's a very serious thing. Somebody has written in the comments here on TikTok, what if it's false allegations towards a stepchild? Any false allegations, any of them are extremely serious. You cannot, like, I would talk to a criminal attorney, a family law attorney immediately. And everybody, and this is one of the biggest problems with misinformation about family law, is the attorneys suck and the system is broken. Yes, it is so effed up, man. But if you have false allegations, you need to understand that case is going to get heard. You can't wing it. And you need to start learning the skills to talk to attorneys and work with them. You've got to. You cannot slip on that. You can't just go on YouTube or TikTok or whatever and just say the system sucks, man, it screwed me, got me too, man, got me too, bro. Like, I get that happens, and just know that happened to me. And I was like, I'm gonna do something about this. And I went and looked at all these men's rights groups in like 2008 to 2012. And it was a bunch of complaining guys, and I was already coaching. I'm like, no, I want to be proactive and learn things. And then I realized how different that was. Like it's really hard to fight, but I learned how to do it when getting just fucking wasted by the courts, you know? So there's a lot of that. Okay, let's keep going. Do I need a guardian ad litem? Do I need a GAL? Amazing question here. Do you know how many GALs, social workers, friends of the court, CPS workers screw over men? It's a lot. But if you have false allegations in like you're in a custody battle with somebody willing to make false allegations, so they probably have a personality disorder, you're going to need a GAL in the court. You're probably going to need something like a custody evaluator in the court too. You're probably going to need a CPS worker officer interviewing everybody. You're probably going to need that. And the fact is that these people can really suck. And I do have some friends that do this, and actually they quit. They stopped doing it. But these people really could do a poor job. So you're going, man, the courts are unfair. Fuck it, I'm going to disappear. I'm going to give up. No, 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 no. Because we have guys who've won. So I'm going to tell you what they did in this. Now it's hard. It goes back and forth, and you may start off on the wrong foot. You need to learn how to talk to your GAL, CPS worker, social worker, friend of the court, whatever it is. You need to learn how to interact with them, okay? You need to understand what they're looking for. They may see you as bad from the start. They might think that you are the predisposed man that is violent, angry, or abusive. Or if you're a woman, same thing. Like, they could look at you poorly. They're not supposed to. They're going to guarantee you that they don't. They're going to say they don't make friends with other parties, but this does happen quite a bit. They're going to say they're not biased. And your job is to not argue with them. And there's a whole thing to this. And I think this is really important. There's other videos that break down how to talk to CPS workers. It's actually in the 30 and 30 where we talk about that. Like, what do you say in it? And again, like when I talk to my social worker friends about this, of like the interview process, and I also have my own experience, and then we just have tons of experience within the group, they were like, well, you can't manipulate it. I'm like, dude, I'm not asking to manipulate it. The problem is here is so many men are for real, just like the child support thing, are screwed over by this. And if they knew how to properly give an interview, it would make your job easier as a social worker or a CPS officer or a guardian ad litem. So you're going to need these things. You need to know how to talk to them. So number one, best interest of the child. Number two, I am a dad first, and I am a litigant second. And third, I'm a man that's recovering from a nasty divorce, custody battle, whatever it is. And yeah, I'm a little bit angry, but I'm getting help for that. All of this needs to be that their impression of you could be, now there could be bias in this, could also be that they just came from another interview of some really fucked up abuse happening, but their image of you could be that you get angry too much, your anger is dangerous, you even reacting kind of upset, like, oh man, again. Or viewing a text message from her saying, haha, CPS is coming, I hope you kill yourself and die, which messages like that do get sent right when the officer comes over, and you show the officer that, and you go, man, look at, she's a liar. Look at what she's telling me. She's telling me to kill myself. She's with the kids right now. That could come across as angry. You don't want to do that, okay? You want to be able to talk to the officer. As screwed up as this sounds, all I'm doing is carrying you information of the only group that I know of in existence that meets 6-7 days a week of guys that regularly win, that have had probably higher conflict custody battles than you, of what they did. And that's a lot better than people complaining. But so all I'm doing is passing on that information. It's unfair, it's fucked up, it sucks. But they're saying, nope, you know what, officer, or you know what, whoever, law enforcement person, CPS, DCFS officer, look, I'm just trying to be a good dad. If I need to know any extra information, I'm being a better dad. I'm trying to make this work. I'm willing to learn as much as I can, and it's an open book. Now, if there's something where they do step over their boundaries and they say, hey, you know, in my case, Mr. Maeda, could you show me your text messages? And I don't want to do that. Instead of going, well, you know, the whatever law states that you can't do that. Like all those awesome videos, like people get pulled over by cops and they're like, I know this and that. Like you do not want to have that attitude with somebody who's going to be a major witness in your case, right? So when that happens and they step over a line, you can say, I'm not meaning to be disrespectful here, but I think I want to consult with my attorney or get some guidance on this. I don't mean to delay things, but I don't know about that. Can you understand that? And they may say no or whatever, but you want to take every little bit of you being an angry male out of the equation. Okay, the other thing too about standing up for your rights with any court-appointed witness, like a GAL or somebody that's like a huge witness in your case, is they can't really do anything about your rights or enforce them. Their job is only to write a report that is going to be listened to by your judge that's almost more important than any other witness in this on who should have custody. So that's the power they have, which is totally fucked up. And yes, we need to change the system. And yes, they need to be trained better. And there's all sorts of ways to do it. But if you're focusing on your custody case, you're not going to change that law by the time you have your hearing. So you want to prepare for your hearing. Okay, it's really, really important. I've seen too many men lose, and I've seen too many men win, and that is one of the pivotal differences. Okay, so you probably need a GAL if you have false allegations. Do you need to get an appointed counselor? I actually read that as an appointed counsel. Sometimes you do, and so you need to know that. In some states, like New York, the kids could have attorneys. They could get their own counsel, right? And it's important to know that step. Other states and counties have it too. It could be common. You need to know that because if you don't know that and you don't prepare for it, that will blindside you, okay? What are the circumstances that Child Protective Services should get involved? Child Protective Services could very easily get involved. You need to know their investigation is important. Man, this again happens all the time. CPS does not work at a good pace. In fact, none of them do. Whatever, if it's Department of Family Services or Friends of the Court, they move slow. And all they have to do is write a report, and they make all sorts of excuses. Your party, her party, the judge is ready to, they've done everything. Like instead of the CPS, like let's say on July 1st, the CPS officer interviews everybody and they're ready to do their report. But now it's September 6th and months have passed and you've gone to all of your classes, you've done all the things that the alleged abuse is supposed to happen, and the judge is there, whatever, you're waiting for the CPS report, but you have your hearing, both lawyers show up, you pay for it, whatever the situation is, and the CPS officer is not done with their report. Case is continued. This is horrible. The judge can say, CPS officer, you suck, but probably won't. But there's really no way for that person to be held accountable for it. You can make a complaint. The judge could make a complaint to their superior, but this stuff happens all the time. And this is also why if you have false abuse allegations and you hire the proper counsel for it, and you can get it kicked out of court, or you can do, like in my case, false allegations were being made, they hadn't entered into court yet, we deposed them, in the deposition all this other stuff came up that was incriminating to the other party, and they were like, okay, we're cool, man, we're cool. And so you can do different things to stop your case, and those are really important. Like you stop before it starts, there's not enough information about it, and sadly, most of the information that's guiding men on this is like hysteria, like, you know, we're screwed. And we are screwed in a lot of ways as men, but we need to solve it with intellect, wisdom, hard work, like real hard work in the actual work like this, like, you know, creating information to spread to other people and other men unifying. Like it's another thing, small tangent here, little one. So everybody says they're going to start a petition to change the laws. And guy says that he's going to start a group to help fathers. And there's like 1 million guys a year that say this. One guy has effectively changed the laws in Texas. That's Robert Garza. Amazing stuff. Amazing. and there's not a lot of other guys. You should do that. I took on this of groups and learning about it and educating men, and there's not a lot of me's. And like, you should do this. And the reason why you don't do it is because it's really hard. And I didn't do it because I was like an extra strong or amazing person. There were a whole bunch of things that came into place that made that happen. But we need to really understand what is going to change this. And we put a lot of time and energy into ranting online, and we say it's for awareness, but all that does is help guys lose cases. Like, seriously, let's do the math on that. Like, how many guys who follow those ranter dudes have helped people win cases? And I can literally say I've helped a lot of guys win cases that were criminal and fucked up and some of the harshest shit. And there's some other people who have too that are really good, that have YouTube channels and TikTok channels. But man, I mean, less than 10 that really do that for about 1 million guys every year that say they're going to dedicate their lives to this. And I get it, it's hard, but we should really come together and look at that. That's the facts or hashtag facts that nobody wants to look at. Okay, there's a couple of other things in here. He has some stuff on dating. This is really important to look at. Man, I just deleted the window, oh my God, of my thing. Let me go to my other notes. So there's something here on dating that is really, really important. Sorry guys who are watching on the Zoom, you're looking at a different screen. But what's important about dating in your child custody case is the more you introduce revolving door parents, right? So like a surrogate father, surrogate mother to your children, the more you do that, and if you do that like 2 times within 2 years, in a lot of states that could be argued to lose custody. You know, when and how do you introduce partners or, you know, somebody you're dating to your children? This is a really big factor. And the reason why it's a really big factor, like a lot of times in my content, I harp on how things like parental alienation isn't seen as abuse by the courts, okay? So it has to be argued in this backwards way. On yesterday's live stream, we talked about it, but it's seen by the courts as something that is not abusive, but it's seen as something that is like, I don't know, a forgivable thing. This is horrible. But what is seen as abusive in courts is the revolving door. And the reason why it is because it is abusive. So there's studies done that totally exist on parents who've found new partners and introduce them to the kids, and then they go. And then another partner comes and gets introduced to the kids. And the results that come out of this are really, really terrible. In fact, my attorney who passed away, in the interview that I have with him on my channel, he talks about it. And it's actually stated in those studies that it could be argued that those children were better off dead. Now that's really harsh to say, but that's the weird scientific mumbo jumbo in the study. And so that's how bad it could be to be around parents that constantly do that. So if you do that, that could be really harmful to your children. It could not only make you lose your case, but that is something that's harmful. So in introducing new partners, like, you know, of course, while you're dating somebody, you can date people and they can come around and they can be your friend, but don't do intimate actions around them. Don't have them be surrogate moms. And on vice versa, women oftentimes find new partners and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, man, it really can cause a problem. Like one of the things that we always do in this is it's like, I'm gonna rebound and show them. And there's that kind of immaturity that exists so much in this whole thing. Totally crazy. A comment came in on the Zoom call. What if they did it before you were together with your now stepchildren? Man, I mean, after the fact, so this is a thing, like what happens if there were these illegal actions 10 years ago or 5 years ago or even 2 years ago? Now, it's different for each argument. This is where it's really, really fucked up, okay? So there was some sort of abuse or illegal activity in the past. What do the courts care about? if there was drugs, it could matter. Okay, drugs, not working a program that the court cares about. So you could be sober, but you're not doing like a 12-step program or a smart recovery program. Like if you're not doing one of those things that the court cares about, there could be reason to investigate. Okay, and that's for men or women. And if there's, it depends on the state, depends on the county, but let's say there was something like meth or cocaine in the past or heroin or whatever, and then there was a DUI or a DWI, that's a big deal. Like let's say they've been sober for many years, but now they drink a little bit, they got pulled over. This could be a huge deal, okay? Let's say marijuana is legal, okay? Could also be a huge deal if it could be argued that it was done inappropriately. So if there's like a drug history, it could be a big deal. Violence, any sort of abuse in the past, any of those things. Sorry, I got to do this thing on TikTok to verify that I'm still alive. But any of those things in the past for a man, those stick in court, which is screwed up. Mental instability, whatever, like let's say a woman has vandalized her ex-partner's stuff or something like that, or done a revolving door, something like that in the past. Can we argue that in a modern court case? You can try, but if it isn't successfully argued, you have to start being creative about how you'd get that argument. So this is like how you need to start thinking in family court. There's a history of this person. Does a court, that judge, regularly care about that history? Probably not. Okay, so we know there's a history. We know there's a pattern. How can we get that active right now to build our case? Now, everybody always says, like our culture is so screwed up. It wants to be the cheerleader for the underdog, and which is cool if they're really an underdog, like a good person who's disadvantaged by something they can't control. But we consider a criminal or a child abuser an underdog. So when explaining this, there's real abuse happening that we're trying to prevent. So in this situation, basically, like they've done something in the past. Okay, this means it's probably a pattern that they can't control that they're going to repeat. We can analyze that and especially bounce it off somebody. I think that that's important. We can analyze that and see a pattern, and then we can put that in front of them in a way that it's involved in the court. So this could be like your interrogatories, your discovery, depositions, any testimony, sworn affidavits, these types of things. Can we get that pattern to be exposed? An attorney who's used to dealing with false allegations, or somebody with NPD or BPD, is going to have some examples of how that's done, or they work in a firm where that's possible. And another variation of this could be psych evals. Now, it's going to be much cheaper to go the discovery interrogatories route. Psych evals get expensive, $5,000, $10,000. Sometimes they cost more. They take a long time. It's going to take you 3 to 6 months. And there's going to be all this resistance to it too. Nobody's going to want to take them. You got to take them. Probably the kids got to take them. It's best if everybody has to take them. But once those psych evals come in, then an argument could be made that, well, in the past they did this. And this pattern was untreated. And now it's happening in this way. And so now there's a 20-year history. But you can't just walk into court, usually, like you have to do your due diligence, interview people, understand what your judge rules upon, understand what that court rules upon, and go like, 2 years ago, she was doing this, right? But there's ways to then make that thing that's provable and there's evidence of, have it be important. And you got to get creative with it. This is a really hard thing to do because we go like, man, she's lying. Okay, but how do we make that lie matter in court? All right, dudes on the live stream, thank you so much on TikTok. Thank you on YouTube, which I think has shut off accidentally, but YouTube, in rewatching this, thank you. And guys, go to my profile, get the High Conflict Custody portal. It's the best stuff. We're here to help you guys. I have a business. I need it to stay alive. If you want to sign up for my services, please do. You'll get more than your money's worth. It's the best thing. We give you everything. We have people that work, but like we have people that work, like this works. We have people that succeed. But if you can't afford it and you're a dad just trying to get by, dude, I have so much shit for you, and please use it. Please use it and win. And if you're a mom that's translating it to mom language, go for it. I got nothing against you. I've just been coaching men, and this is written for men, and there is a difference. There's a big difference with certain things, but I hope more women could do this. I don't understand why more people don't do it. I'm seriously just a guy that lost and learned how to win and is good at running men's groups. We should have more people doing it. All right. Later, guys. Have a good one.